Hello and welcome to the topic on company membership. This is also a topic under the module on company law. In this particular topic, by the end of the topic, we will have achieved the following objectives: explore ways of becoming a member. So we will understand how do we become members of companies. And we'll also understand the different methods that one can become a member of a company. We will also understand how one ceases to be a member of a company. We are saying company membership will include people and corporations that have agreed to become members in writing, and of course through the subscription of company shares. When we talk about subscription of company shares, we simply mean that you have agreed to buy the shares of a particular company. So you are deemed to be a member by virtue of buying those particular shares. There are a number of ways that we can become members of a company. Number one, or number A, is by agreeing to subscribe to the memorandum of the company. That's very, very important for you to be able to do. We have discussed the memorandum of association. Then the second way is by accepting to be a member by having his or her name in the company's register of members. So the companies keep what we call the register of members, and these registers are meant to be able to ensure that we have a list. We can be able to know who is our member or who is a member of a company, and so on and so forth. Now, we ask ourselves a very, very important question. Who can become a member? Number one, we can talk about any person who has attained the age of majority. Basically, when we talk about the age of majority, we are talking about maybe 18 years and above. And we're also emphasizing, even if you have attained the age of majority, we are emphasizing in this particular point that you should not be insane or insolvent. So this is simply to say, for you to become a member, once you attain the age of majority, you should also be sane, and you should also not be bankrupt. That is a very important point to be able to emphasize. Number two, also a company. And how does a company become a member? Because once a company is registered, it becomes a legal person, and it can become a member of another company if the memorandum of association has been able to authorize that kind of membership. Now, we have quite a number of methods that we can adopt, or methods that people use in order to become members of companies. Number one is by subscribing to the memorandum. And we are saying one is presumed to be a member of a company once they subscribe to the memorandum and their name is entered in the company register. So subscribing to the memorandum of association is very, very important. It signifies that you have now qualified to be a member of a company. And the other one is through allotment. A person to whom a company shares have been allotted acquires his membership. When you talk about allotment, remember when a company advertises or to the public that they are selling shares, it is an expectation that you as a person who intends to buy the shares, you are going to apply, and you by applying you will also state maybe how much you intend to buy in terms of shares. So at that particular moment, through just the application, we cannot just say now you are a member. Now, allotment comes when the company now agrees to give you a certain number of shares. That's what we call allotment. So the moment an allotment has been done, or the moment now the shares that you had applied have been given to you, Now you become a member, and that is what we call allotment. And it is done to every other person who had applied for a certain number of shares. Of course, the company has a right to, even if you had applied for whatever number, they have a right to limit that number or give you less, or to allot you less of those particular shares. Another way that one can become a member of a company is through transfer. We have emphasized that transfer only happens in public limited companies, and this involves the purchase of shares from a company's shareholder. And then automatically, once the transfer has been done, then the new name of the person who has bought the shares automatically becomes the member of a company. When we talk about shares, it simply we mean that it is a unit of ownership, and anyone willing to sell or transfer their shares in public limited companies are free to do so, and there are no much restrictions on that particular activity. So whoever the shares are transferred to, whoever has transferred the shares, if they have transferred all of them, then automatically they cease to be members, and the new person whom the shares have been transferred to now becomes the new member of the company. The other one is a transmission on death of a member. So when death happens, we are saying it is an automatic process by which ownership of a company changes by virtue of death. So death signifies the end of a certain member in terms of owning shares, and that is a major also thing that is happening currently. Now we have what we have just mentioned a while ago, what we call the register of members, and we are saying it is a requirement that every company will need to have a register of members. When we go to this document, we are calling a register of members. What are some of the things that we can find in this particular document? Number one is the postal address of the members and their names. So that's very, very important to be able to note names of all the members, postal address. Of course, that is for any communication that the company intends to do to you. They can use your particular postal address that is appearing in the register of members. The other one is a statement showing a number of shares held by each member. Yeah, so that information is very, very crucial. Remember, as companies issue dividends or pay dividends, dividends are the benefits that you gain as a result of you being a shareholder in a particular company. So of course, as they distribute these dividends, they have to now look at the statement showing the number of shares each person has as a member, because it is against those shares that now we can be able to know how much we pay you in terms of dividends. And the other one is amount agreed or paid on shares of each member. That is the amount that I'm now calling the dividends. So number three, you should know that amount is dividends. And then the fourth content is when every member was added into the register. So the aspect of also the dates are very, very crucial in terms of showing when did member X, when did member Y become a member of a particular company. There are situations where the register can be rectified or can be altered. And we are saying these circumstances are number one, if the name of any person without sufficient cause entered in or omitted from the company's register. So we can have a mistake of omissions of a name or omission of a person who is deemed to be a member, but they are not appearing in the register. That we can allow for rectification, so that now we can add the name. And we can also have a situation where somebody has been entered into the register and they are not members. So as we are doing our audit activities of the register, then we can be able to strike out the names that for people that are no longer or they are not members. The other one is default is made or unnecessary delay takes in entering on the register the fact that any person having ceased to be a member. Sometimes we can apply for transfer of shares, but the register is not updated. So that becomes a problem, and maybe people may forget to do that, those that are concerned. So once we realize that, then the register can be rectified to update the names of those particular members. Now, who will apply for register rectification? And this application, of course, is made through the court. And we are saying through the court, the following may apply for the register of or the register to be rectified. Number one is an aggrieved person. You may be aggrieved in the sense that you maybe received a transfer of shares and the company forgot to update their register. So you are aggrieved because you feel that maybe your rights have been violated. Any other member of the company can also recommend for rectification of the register. Because remember, when anything is being done through the courts of law, you also need to have evidence on why you are seeking any form of orders. And also the company itself, maybe they want to do an audit to assess whether the register is in the right records or all the names that we deem to be members have been put in place. Now, once you apply for rectification, the court may have two suggestions or options to give to you as somebody who has sought rectification. Number one, the court has the ability to refuse the application. So if you are seeking rectification and the court says no, based on the evidences that have been prepared and based on the issues that have been raised, then that means that the rectification is not going to take place. And number two, the court may also order rectification of the register and payment by the company of any damages sustained by any party that is aggrieved. Yeah, so order rectification of the register. So they can either refuse or order rectification depending on the grounds that they have listened to the parties that we have just mentioned that have presented the rectification, the request for a rectification of the register of members. Now, once you become a member, you are a shareholder. You own shares, and shareholders have rights. And part of these rights are what we call the primary rights. And the primary rights, for example, number one is to attend to general or class meetings of the company. So you are allowed to attend to company meetings. And also you have opportunities, the primary opportunity to vote when you are called upon, and also receive your dividends, or what you are saying is or dividends. So those are rights that you have, primary rights. If you have any shares in a company, you need to receive dividends. Mostly these dividends are an annual payment. It is part of the benefits that you enjoy. Now we may be able to ask ourselves, where do companies get money? Companies get money to pay dividends. You realize most companies will go ahead and invest the money that you've given them in form of you buying their shares. or your shares. So the company does not stay with the money just lying idle. So dividends are part of the sources of the money that is used to pay dividends is from a company's investments in various projects. A company that has also issued shares from that money, we can also invest in what we call treasury bonds. Those are risk-free return. They can invest in property. Like we said, a company, once it becomes a separate legal entity, it can, part of the things it can do is it can be able to own property. So proceeds from the properties, they can also be used to benefit shareholders through dividends. And then we have the rights of shareholders, what we call the secondary rights. The first one is to be able to inspect minutes of the registrars and general meetings. So once minutes have been written, you have a right to inspect, confirm whether what is indicated there is what was discussed in the meetings. The other one is to get a copy of the memorandum and articles. So you can always request for this documentation so that you can also be able to better understand your company, and that will be key for you also to know how the company is run, to understand different clauses, the object clauses, the name clauses, the registered office clause, and so on and so forth. And finally, another final right or secondary right of any shareholder is obtain copies of balance sheets before being presented to the annual general meeting. So you have a right also to receive balance sheets, different statements of accounts before they are presented to the annual general meeting. Maybe you need to confirm and do a different or some form of verification, or you need to understand your company better in terms of how it runs its affairs, how are the company's books of accounts, and so on and so forth. Now, there are certain scenarios that a person is going to cease to be a member of a company. And number one is through what we call forfeiture. And we are saying where company articles have given authority to the director to forfeit the shares of a member, the member will definitely cease to be a member of the company. So sometimes you may have debt that will push you to forfeit your shares. So in that particular situation now, you automatically cease to be a member of that company. Remember, when you are given a share certificate that shows that you own shares in a particular company, you can be able to use it as collateral in financial institutions. Now, problem comes in when you default to pay that particular loan. It would really now put you in a scenario where you may need to forfeit your shares because you did not meet the end of your bargain. And the other one is transfer, when an existing member sells all the shares. We have said for public limited companies, you are allowed to transfer your shares, sell your shares. So once you sell your shares, definitely you automatically cease to be a member of that company. Another reason or another issue that may cause somebody to cease to be a member of a company is death. They are saying one ceases to be a member and the shares become property of a personal representative. So if it's a father, maybe they can have a personal representative being a child. And remember, we emphasized on the need to have somebody maybe who is at the age of has achieved or attained the age of majority. Another reason why people will cease to be members would be liquidation or winding up. From the moment the liquidation is effective, all membership is terminated. So when a company has wound up, it has stopped its activities. It means now people will also cease to be members of such kind of a company. And finally, on the cessation of membership is through rescission of contract and occurs through a shareholder revoking his or her allotment of shares. Yeah, so sometimes you may be allotted shares and then you just decide to cancel the contract, but you're no longer interested in those particular shares. So rescission is borrowed from the word resigned. You can take back the decision, or you can write to the company expressing your desire not to continue with the agreement or with the allotted shares. You are no longer interested. So that is what we call the rescission of the contract. So that is going to bring us to the end of that particular discussion. I believe you will now be able to understand different ways that people cease to be members of companies. You're going to understand also different rights of shareholders, the primary, the secondary. You're also going to understand issues around the rectification of the register and so on and so forth. So I invite you to do research in the areas that have been discussed here so that you can be able to understand these concepts and be able to also apply them around, and the shares become property of a personal representative. So if it's a father, maybe they can have a personal representative being a child. And remember, we emphasized on the need to have somebody maybe who is at the age of has achieved or attained the age of majority. Another reason why people will cease to be members would be liquidation or winding up. From the moment the liquidation is effective, all membership is terminated. So when a company has wound up, it has stopped its activities. It means now people will also cease to be members of such kind of a company. And finally, on the cessation of membership is through rescission of contract and occurs through a shareholder revoking his or her allotment of shares. Yeah, so sometimes you may be allotted shares and then you just decide to cancel the contract,